Welcome to another long-awaited episode of the X-Men podcast. I guess a brief return from hiatus, which wasn't really planned, but was happenstance as, God forbid, did some more reunion shows in 2025, and we performed our entire album, Constitution of Treason, in its entirety, and it was really, really incredible. And through our brother man, Corey Pierce, he linked us up with the gentleman I have on the other end of this podcast, Mr. Chris Aballo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's funny to think that I'm on the X-Men podcast as a filmmaker, even though it didn't exist when I had a music career, to use the term very generously. To be on here at all is still pretty awesome. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, if not for you, this episode would not exist, and kind of want to just give a quick intro on how this came to be. Before we really get into it, can you give the listeners just a little insight into your background and kind of how you got involved with this project?
Sure. So I started podcasting with friends of mine in 2010. In fall of 2012, I'd moved from Jersey, where I'm living again, but for several years, I moved out to Los Angeles because I was doing a lot of voiceover and voice acting and whatnot. So I started doing my own podcast in 2013 called Chris Aballo's Podcast Experiment, abbreviated as CAPE or Cape Pod. That has been going now it's going to be 13 years in April. So that's how kind of all this came together. I don't know if you necessarily remember or know the whole story about how I ended up in the God forbid sphere. Should we kind of tell everybody all that?
Yeah, please refresh all of our memories.
So it was fall of 2021. 2021, the show was still kind of hybrid, but I was doing a bunch of interviews virtually, and I just put out on Instagram, who should I interview? And your name came up from a few people. So I ended up tagging you in an Instagram story post. Who else thinks I should interview at Coyle? And shortly after, you responded and said, for sure, let's set it up. Episode 191 of my show, you and I did a virtual interview, which was great. Corey Pierce tuned into that and was into my particular brand of nonsense enough to kind of connect with me through social media. We struck up this friendship and we kept talking. And then August of 2022, episode 210, he was on my show. He and I obviously kept up a friendship for the last couple of years, and then fast forward to now summer of 2025. At a point, he reaches out, in his Corey way, and says, "I'm looking to get some TikToks and shit. We need more shit for YouTube, for the band, and you want to film some shit." So for a guy, by the way, who's such close friends with Mary Jane, he's always really, really hype. But that's how I remember it. So he said, "We're doing these shows, this East Coast run in September. Do you want to film some stuff, some like candid stuff behind the scenes, some footage from the shows? What do you think?" And I said, yeah, well, we'll talk about it, just run it by the band, see what they say, and we'll work it out. He had mentioned about kind of like spending the weekend, like coming to Pennsylvania and starting out and going through the whole thing. And I thought, what, like a reality show? Like, is this going to be like, the Osbournes or something? Like, that might be a little strange for the guy. I mean, you and I met and hung out once at his 50th birthday party, but I thought it might be a little weird having some rando, with a camera, like filming everybody, around the temporary HQ for this tour. That might be a little weird. But anyway, through continuing to talk about it, we ended up thinking it was the best idea to film the hometown show at Starland Ballroom. My friend Chris Mad came along as a second camera, and the thought was we'll get some behind the scenes stuff, we'll get some candid stuff just for social media. That was the whole plan. And then get some concert footage and, it'll be great. Because reasons, there wasn't a chance on the day to actually do talking head interview, like you guys, just talking to the camera, kind of answering questions I'm asking you, from behind the camera. Because that didn't come together, we shot the entire show. But what kept coming up through the day was, because you guys had the show the night before, there seemed to be particular pride when it came to this album. Like the Constitution album was very unique for you guys. And just in the way you guys were talking about, the show the night before and how you were going to go about it for the second show that night. And I thought, well, there's kind of something here. But didn't really get to elaborate on it because I didn't get to ask you guys questions on camera. So after getting all the footage and bringing it back and kind of reviewing it, I said, I think we have a documentary here. I think there's something we can do. And so I put that out to you and Corey in our little group chat. I thought, well, what if we did interviews and we'll do it cinematically? Let's do it like I'll interview you guys like virtually. Let's do it so it's voiceover, like it's narration, and not show you guys on camera, which is I've seen a couple of documentaries that have done that. So I said, you know what, this might work. You were still in Jersey, unbeknownst to me. You and I talked about it on the phone, and you had said, oh, well, I'm still here. So do you want to meet up and do this thing in person, you, me, and Corey? And we did. So that basically is how the documentary came together, because just kind of through, by accident, it's just a way of, okay, we didn't get the footage we were hoping to get. How do we turn that disadvantage into an advantage?
Yeah, I call this a classic situation of mission creep, where something kind of starts out as a kernel of something and really evolved and grew into something. And I'm really happy because this is kind of, I'd say, the second kind of mini documentary we did. We did one about the initial reformation and reunion of the band, and people really seem to like that. And we put this out, and people seem to really like this. And sometimes I'm worried. I'm like, are we like, is this significant enough? Is this like, do people really care? But then again, we're not the biggest band in the world, but the people that do check it out really do seem to appreciate the insight. And I love doing something like this in the podcast space, because for those people that want to go even a level deeper and kind of hear our more in-depth answers. And, I don't want to dwell on it too much, because now, the 20th anniversary is past, but any way we can kind of share things with the fans, bring them into the more intimate spaces with the band, I think is really valuable. So I'm just glad, I know it's content is the name of the game, but for a band like us, that's not a full-time active band, I think anything we can put out there that can bring people in, I think is really valuable. So I just wanted to thank you, first off, for helping make this happen and really be like the captain of the ship and organizing everything, filming, the editing, and just everything. So we flip it in the rest of this podcast, because you're going to be one interviewing Corey and I just wanted to thank you and appreciate you, and let everyone know that without you, all this little pieces of content would not exist.
Oh, well, thanks. You know what? It was genuinely, I feel like the band deserves a lot of fanfare. I'm sure you can appreciate this. I have an affection for most things Jersey, and whether it's music or culture or film and things like that. So to be able to spotlight you guys, it was important, but I also came at it from a sense of, no, this is a story worth telling. And again, just getting the vibe of you guys just, backstage during the day of the show back in September, I thought there is something here. There was just a particular positive energy about the album and playing the album and celebrating the album. And all of that comes out. It came out in the documentary, and it comes out in this, how you guys talk about it. It was great to collaborate the guys on it. And you gave some excellent notes too, even because I was sending you guys edits. You and Corey, I sent you a couple different edits of the documentary, and you guys made some suggestions that were great, even that in itself. And I'm sure as somebody who works for hire as well, you don't always have people who are constructive in their suggestions, or who could be very rigid and like, no, I want it done this way. But you guys were extremely collaborative when it came to actually putting this together. It was great to have that level of participation from you guys, as much as you kind of gave me the freedom to shape it and to put everything together. And you guys were great to work with. And I'm very proud of the documentary, and I'm beyond happy that you guys were so pleased with it. Just that you guys were that happy with how it came out.
Well, I hope everyone enjoys this conversation. Keep in mind, this is part 1 of 2. This one features Chris interviewing myself and Corey Pierce, the band's drummer, and then part 2 feature him with with good Lord, see, the coffee's not working, with Byron and John. Enjoy this conversation, and Chris, thank you, and we'll see you guys soon. Check it out.
So back together now for 3 years. As of this month, does it feel like being in the same band, or is it like a new experience compared to 2013?
I mean, it's an interesting question, because I think our chemistry feels very much the same, especially when we're together. I think the way we kind of correspond doing Zoom calls and text messages and emails can feel a bit impersonal. There's the technology still doesn't totally, I think, reconnect the idea of when we're together. But I think there's just much less pressure now. Like when we were doing the band full time, there was always this pressure for like, this album has to work and this tour has to work and we have to be really great, or this, I think this fear of failure or kind of just pressure to make it, to keep it going and all that. And I think that pressure is off for the most part, and we get to really concentrate on just like, all right, we're here for a few days. These songs are pretty hard and challenging. Let's just like work to make them sound great and just try and have fun. And we generally, it seems like we have a lot of fun, and then we kind of go, okay, and then we play the shows and people are into it. We're like, okay, a few people still kind of like what we do, and then and you get to share it and kind of bounce that energy back with people who really want to support the band.
Excuse me. I was trying to hold it, dude, but this shit was not working out. And I feel like if I hold it anymore, I'll get sick. But I feel like it's both. I feel like in certain ways, everybody's older, so it's like a little more mellow. You know what I mean? So everybody's kind of like, yeah, man, whatever. Like, there's certain things I think, like you said, there was like a pressure, but certain things just matter. Everything mattered more. It's like everything you do is just under the scrutiny all the time. And now it's just like, it ain't that serious, bro. Let's just go out there and kick some ass and then go home, have a few laughs in the interim. You know what I mean? I think that coming out on the other side of being apart makes you appreciate people more, and just like seeing the people that they become is also pretty awesome too. Because obviously people's lives are different. Things happen over years, and you have a total like a different viewpoint, and you look at everybody like, man, it's pretty cool being around these motherfuckers. It's all right, So that's at least my little take on it as far as all that goes.
Yo, Corey, just a little heads up. You're making all kinds of noise.
I can't help that, dude. I try to hold still, but it just, like my foot, it's going right now. I'm like, yo, stop that shit.
He's double bass drumming right now.
Just practicing. Also, because he's not going to be there, try and include the question in your answer. So, because his voice is going to be
excellent producer note. Thank you. The hat never comes off, dude.
ABP You're right. Always be producing.
What?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
What do you mean? I understood what he said. I'm used to being here when we're just going back and forth
with us bullshitting around.
So it's like a different. I got in the habit of being in this room having that same dynamic. Yeah. It's like
now there's an agenda. It's different.
Yes.
That's right. All right.
The inner podcaster can't be defeated.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's even unusual for me to not go like, right, or like I'm trying to be nonverbal in acknowledging what you guys are saying just because I don't want to step on anybody's, responses. How has the fan response been for the shows you guys have done over the last few years? And do you think there's a level of appreciation for the band now that wasn't there during the full-time run up until 2013?
I mean, when it comes to fan support, I could definitely say there's a lot more interest now than when the band broke up. And I always say this, bands break up for reasons. And, if it's rare where you'll see a band disband where like they're at the peak and everything's going great and everyone's just, cashing checks and all that. And when we broke up, it was definitely a difficult time for the band. And we knew we were on this pathway of like, we need to rebuild and we need to kind of get back to it. And it was also like a changing musical landscape. And I think those last few years, we were trying to go, well, where do we fit in with like these genres are kind of taking off, and do we fit here? And I think to some degree, we've always been kind of a musical orphan in terms of not really fitting with any one genre. But a big impetus for us reuniting was I did an interview on some podcast And I think a quote that was pulled from it, and it kind of went, all these websites picked it up, was like, Doc Coyle thinks no one cares about the band. It's like, who, and then all of a sudden that kind of caught some steam, and then you see people kind of respond to that. And, I think there's a natural sense of nostalgia when a band has been gone for a while, and maybe people got into your band when they were in their teens or their 20s, and now they're getting into their late 30s or early 40s, and they're having, that those things kind of just come around. And I think, the response we got when we initially got back together, we did some stuff in New Jersey and Massachusetts, and then we did the Headbangers Boat with Lamb of God, and that really, that was such a cool experience, because not only you performing, but you're hanging out with the fans, and so you get a lot of FaceTime, and people tell you their stories of the last time they saw the band or the first time they saw the band, and the impact it had. At the end of the day, we're not the biggest band in the world, but I think the influence we've had, and it may be most represented in other artists and younger artists who tell us, hey, I saw you when I was a kid, and you made me want to play guitar, or you made me want to start a band, or, maybe inspiring other young musicians who are Black or Hispanic, or who feel like they're more represented, and you see a lot of those elements. But I think we're always at the point where if there's no interest, we're probably not going to do it. But if there is enough, if there's hey, people want to see us, we played in Anaheim with Bleeding Through and Carnifex and Necrogoblicon, and we went to the merch booth, and people we had an issue where our merch got lost, but people lined up for an hour and a half just to meet us and take pictures and sign stuff, and that was really cool, because we don't get a chance to go out there very often, but we weren't even the headlining band, and there seemed for whatever fans we do have, those people are very passionate. I don't know if I answered both questions.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the fan response and also the appreciation.
Yeah.
You pretty much touched on both of them. What do you think? Would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I can still remember it. As far as what I've recognized as being a difference in fan appreciation now as opposed to years ago is I feel like there's a lot of people that stayed with us, and they're we may not have a lot of fans, but they're super freaking loyal, crazy loyal. I got dudes that I know that love this band. They know I love barbecue, so they send me barbecue rub on my birthday and shit. And that's to me, that's the greatest thing in the world. It's yo, man, this dude has, our music affected his life like that. I created some, well, I didn't create, but I'm a part of some very fantastic relationships and friendships because of the experience. And seeing now, I guess then I think I took some things for granted too, because you're not you don't realize how special it is to a certain degree. So things are kind of going on. You're just touring, I'm playing shows, get up, drink, play show, get up, drink, play a show, drink some more, whatever is going on. And it kind of just a lot of it flies by. Just like if you're working, any other job, I suppose. But now I definitely see, you realize that it's kind of there's not, we're not Lamb of God, we're not Killswitch, where there's just, a ton of people that are just clamoring for what we do. But the people that do come forward are so passionate, and they're so loyal that there's no way that you can't appreciate that. And to me, it's to see that now is pretty freaking amazing. I had no idea that, people care that much. I ran into a guy, we played at the Broken Goblet or whatever, and this guy came up, from West Virginia, and his brother came down from Rochester just to meet each other at the show, and they were huge fans. They also had some bootleg God Forbid merch on, I might add, but that's neither here nor there. But
hey, better bootleg merch than no merch.
I'll tell you what though, that T-shirt was kind of hot. It was a Gone Forever T-shirt and had God Forbid on the side by the waist. I was like, yo, man, we never made no shit look like that.
Yeah, license it. Drag it down, license it.
But I think it's a pretty great feeling. Even if it was a couple people come up to you every show. And I mean, I think that it's been, very positive, for the most part. And it's just amazing that after all this time that anybody gives a shit. In my personal opinion, like the way people think, people aren't that loyal to things, especially nowadays. There's always another band, there's another actor, there's another superstar every day around the corner. You know what I'm saying? Everybody fades away, in today's culture, I think. So to have people that even give a shit at all, to me, is incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Last year was 20 years since Gone Forever. You guys played that in full. Now you're here at Constitution. What do you regard as the leap the band made from one album to the next in a short period of time?
I mean, the leap between Gone Forever and Constitution, well, it's interesting because there's definitely some people that they prefer Gone Forever, and I understand that. But I think for us, the biggest difference, it's pretty definitive and kind of singular for that album, where Gone Forever is our breakout album. So we did the biggest touring we ever did. We did Ozfest. We toured with Machine Head for 4 months. We did a small run with Slipknot. We went to Japan with In Flames. All of a sudden, we're kind of on the front row of the big league. And we felt like not only did we kind of earn our stripes to be there and hold our own, but it was a big learning experience to be front row and center for the biggest bands in the thing you've been fighting your whole life to kind of do. And we essentially, when we had a lot of turmoil where we split with our manager, we split with our agent, but we were so determined on our own to be like, we're going to make an album, we're going to do this, we're not going to allow these issues to kind of stop us in our tracks. So it was the first time we got to write an album without having to work day jobs. So, and we just basically moved into Beaker's house, wrote. At first we tried to do 5 days a week, and then we realized we're going to kill each other. So we did 4 days a week. We did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, Thursday, Friday. And we did that for, I want to say, 7 weeks or something like that, 7 or 8 weeks. Maybe even shorter, maybe even like 6 weeks. But wrote pretty much the entire album, went on tour, and then came back and recorded the album in 8 weeks. And so to have like a really compressed creative process and be completely, we were unquestioning. We knew exactly what we wanted to do, and we've never had that kind of level of confidence and I think focus. A lot of the albums have been, a real questioning period of like, who are we? Do we want to do this? What direction do we want to go in? Because we've never been creatively a static band or who wanted to recreate what we did last time. We always felt like every album was like, oh, that was cool, but here's why that doesn't work, and here's how we can improve. So that level of focus and confidence, and also touring with the Slipknots and the Machine Heads and being inspired by these big songs that fit in big venues and kind of speak to these broader ideas. So it was like we want to graduate to the next level.
The jump between records of Gone Forever and Constitution. I mean, I don't know if I feel that confident in quantifying it very easily. I felt like there was a lot of weird underlying things going on. I mean, positive things, I think, songwriting-wise, in a lot of ways, there was a lot more connectivity. I felt like it was easier to understand each other because I feel like there was like a communication breakdown often during the initial couple records. It's like in that people are trying to communicate ideas and we didn't know exactly how to communicate them or respond. So then it's kind of like turns into turmoil, which I think on some level worked for us, but at a certain point that it's not sustainable. So Constitution was like the proof of that idea. Like, okay, like everybody's kind of learned more about how to do this and definitely not working, just being able to focus and just play literally all the time. Apart from just the band rehearsing, I know I would get up in the morning sometimes with just myself and John, and we'd have like that truck stop mug of coffee and smoke a blunt and just go down there to play for like 3-4 hours. You know what I mean? That changes a lot. That level of comfort, I think, feeling like you're not you could kind of just rely on everybody in the band to operate at a certain level, I think is the biggest jump. Like you feel just like, at least that's how I felt. I felt like it's like this seems somehow, I don't want to say easier. I don't know if easier is the right word, but that's the best word I can come up with in my mind. Just there was like this ease and sort of comfort about kind of communicating more. I mean, obviously, God forbid, still God forbid, there's plenty of arguments and cursing. That was like a prerequisite, I think. I don't know, but I think that was the biggest jump for me. Like everybody just feeling more at ease with each other and feeling more comfortable with the process as a whole, I think made the biggest difference. At least in my mind's eye, that's how it was going down. I don't know what everybody else thought, but that's
well, another, I think, element about the album that is a distinct kind of jump, and maybe in a way it's kind of a throwback to like Determination, is we started to really get a flair and lean into kind of progressive ideas and letting things breathe and exploring musical ideas and not being in a rush to like get to the next part and, letting things breathe a little bit. And I think we have a real deep progressive streak underneath the band that kind of like, if you let us off the chain, we're going to go and be like, hey man, hey, let's jam. We have that kind of in our bones, and I think this is the first time we really took that for a ride. It's restrained, and it gets way crazier on the follow-up album, Earth's Blood, but I think that's something that's a pretty distinct difference between this record and the previous one, which is a lot more economical in its structure.
With doing tours like with Machine Head, Slipknot, and then something like Ozfest, where you're not only touring with peers and people at a similar level, but also looking at pioneers, looking at Ozzy and looking at Judas Priest and just saying, okay, this is where everybody else is. And also this is where people are, 30 years in. Did that make you guys step up your game going in and saying like, oh, okay, yeah, did that bring some, that extra push for, okay, now we see what everybody else is doing on a bigger scale than just doing on a tour with one or two other bands. And also seeing, okay, this is what these guys are doing, a couple of decades deep into their career. Did that give a push to you guys going in doing this album, coming off of those tours?
Well, I think the element there is just the kind of autobiography of our band is a little different than some bands where I think we were metal guys who discovered the hardcore scene and then were influenced by that world, and that colored especially our first couple albums. But the stuff we grew up on was those bands. It was Metallica and Slayer and Sabbath and the kind of more traditional metal world. So in a weird way, I think our skill set caught up with this idea that we wanted to be a part of the broader thing called heavy metal and didn't want to kind of be stuck in this kind of metalcore world, which I think felt to us a little, or hardcore world, which felt a little smaller in terms of like there seemed to be like these definitive expectations of how a song was supposed to be. Like you need to have this many breakdowns and it needs to be about these things, and if you sing it, that's kind of bad. And so I think we were always fighting formula sometimes to our detriment, because there are fans who like certain records and then we would shift because we didn't want to be pigeonholed, and now they don't like the next record. And so with God Forbid, unfortunately, I think we have very segmented fan bases. We have people who like certain eras of the band and they don't like the other eras because they feel like we went too far in this direction. But I think what we really admired about, or at least I did, being able to see Black Sabbath up close, being able to see Judas Priest up close, was musicality. And we felt sometimes the being stranglehold by like the hardcore scene or the metalcore scene, where it's like just doing dun, 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 so people will like kill each other is not musical. It's just pandering. And so I feel like, at least with me, like we were like almost an anti-populist band where we're like, no, we're not going to give you what you want. And we're going to elevate the idea, and maybe ultimately that hurt us Because I think bands that were a little more formulaic, that gave people what they want, probably did very well with that.
What was the question again?
Was touring with like Slipknot, Machine Head, Ozfest? Yeah, like did that give you the extra push when it came to doing this record specifically?
I mean, I think anytime you're around and you're just the experience alone and seeing how they carry themselves and how they, the kind of shows that they put on. Like I remember, this is actually a pretty interesting story. So I met Hank 3 Sheldon, and like I didn't. At the time, I didn't know who he was. And he had a big bottle of Jack Daniels. And he said, "Hey, man, why don't you come on with me? We're going to go watch Judas Priest soundcheck." And I was like, first of all, this cat has got duct tape all over his sneakers. You know what I'm saying? He looks crazy. He's a crazy looking dude. Nicest dude in the universe, though. Super cool. And I remember going over there, and Phil Anselmo's over there. And it's just like 4 of us watching Judas Priest soundcheck. Then I walked out of the stands, and you go up behind the Judas Priest rig, and they got guitar amps that's like guitars to make every album, every song sound like the album that it came off of. I remember seeing that going, this is utterly ridiculous. But later on, I realized, like, that's dedication right there. They're going the extra mile to be the best for their fan base, like to do these great things, but it's with a purpose. It's not just for a show. It's actually, there was a great intent behind it. And seeing things like that, and then of course, the ultimate change, I got to sit behind Dave Lombardo every day and smoke weed and drink Heinekens while he played Slayer songs. If you're a metal drummer, there is no more life-changing experience. There just is not. It doesn't exist. I've looked for it. It does not happen any better than that. Like that, meeting him and seeing that changed my life in a way that is inexplicable. I lack the words to articulate the feelings that I had watching that every day. And him like explaining things and telling me how he came up with ideas. And like, there's actually a bunch of stuff on Constitution that have Dave Lombardo ideas, as well as Straight Up Thievery from Dave McLean, which I told him to his face about. In fact, The Lonely Dead, the Tom part and that whole part is directly stolen from Dave McLean. And I just told him, that's mine now. It's not yours. What you gonna do? And he just kind of looked at me and smiled. I was like, that's a good response. I like that response. So, I mean, I think just by the nature of those experiences, like seeing dudes that are just like, they're so dedicated and they're just so good. Like you're going to absorb some of that just like osmosis. You're just there. So you're just getting some, you know what I mean? Like this is fantastic. And just being around dudes like that, it's like, it's going to rub off on you. Well, it should. Obviously, in some cases, there's, I'm not going to get into that, but, you see bands, you go, how are you around this long and it's still this terrible? How is that possible? But that's neither here nor there. I felt like that was one of the greatest things, just being around guys that are so talented, so dedicated to what they do, that they go and put on these amazing shows. And I just feel, it just elevates you by just nature of being there.
Was there any thought at any point in the process of making the album or through the history of the band over the last 20 years that you thought you would still be playing these songs or celebrating this album 20 years on?
I mean, I think when the band was active and Dallas was still in the band, I never thought I would do anything else. I never thought about anything else. It wasn't until Dallas left the band that I even considered that being in this band would not be like the rest of my life. But then again, I don't think I was the most forward thinking and kind of long-term planning type of individual. But I think since when the band did break up, I think for a long time, I just really moved on, and really, and starting my podcast, The X-Men, talking with the other guys in the band and kind of hearing their stories, bringing on, people who worked for the band, label people, and kind of piecing together this kind of oral history of what the band was, what it meant, the impact it had, allowed me to kind of like put it to sleep in a very healthy and comfortable way. And I had no real expectations, but then, like I said, this album in particular, Constitution of Treason, lends itself to, we should play that album, because Constitution and Gone Forever, we've played every single song, like on its own, at some point. So it's like, well, why wouldn't we do that? It's not like I think in the same way, like Metallica's played every song off of pretty much most of their albums. So it's not hard to imagine them performing it live as a full thing, because you don't put songs on tiers like, oh, it's the single, that's the important one. They're all important to us. So I think once we kind of broke up, it's like, well, if we're gonna do something, or even like we have issues, I'm like, we gotta stick around long enough just to play this album because I think it's special, and we just did it, and it was, I don't know, it's definitely the coolest. Like, I think it's cooler playing this album than it was playing Gone Forever. That was cool, but it literally is like a set. It flows exactly like you would formulate a set to be. We have opened with End of the World before, and we have closed sets with Crucify Your Beliefs. It completely makes sense.
It has an arc.
Yeah, like like the hills and valleys are perfectly curated.
I was trying to gather my thoughts, just thinking about playing Constitution of Treason from 20 years from when it happened. And I'll be honest, at that point in the band's career, I really felt like this shit could crash any day. That's just how I felt. I felt like there were so many moments where things were kind of going to go off the rails like all the time in some capacity or another, whether it was like in the band or somebody that worked for us or just things happening. I felt like, it could last forever. It could be gone tomorrow. No pun intended. So as far as having the even distant concept of playing this album 20 years later, absolutely not. Like, in my mind, I had no thoughts of that whatsoever. And then when the band broke up, I mean, I'll be real. I was so disgusted with playing music in the music industry. I didn't touch a pair of drumsticks for like 6 months. I couldn't even. I felt so terrible because it's like I felt like the thing that I love most in life was completely destroyed and taken from me in some capacity. I mean, obviously it wasn't, but that's how what was going through my head. So at that point, I definitely was like, you know what? I mean, there were other things going on in my life too that were like kind of shitty at the same time. Like, everything kind of happened in like a 6-month period. Like, everything kind of was like, and I was kind of like, you know what? Life is shit. It's all it is. So then it's just like, when you have that kind of mindset, you just kind of take days as they come. I will say this. Playing this album now, for me, is absolutely amazing. Because it's so, honestly, it's like, I could play this album so much better than I played it then. Like, the way I played things then was like, it was very energetic in a way. Like, I was so excited. But, like, that's the type of player I was at that point. So, and I'm sure these dudes will tell you like 1,000 times, all I did was speed everything up all the time. And like, now, I'm at a point which I actually realize how a lot of that stuff is supposed to be played. Like, the concepts in itself, like the way Constitution is, it's a very moody album, but it's very groove oriented, and it's very like you're constantly creating these sort of like storylines across the album. And basically your job as a drummer is to control this sort of like emotional pace. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's grooving, sometimes it's heavy. You want people to dance, you want people to headbang. Sometimes you want people to just kind of like observe. And up until that point, it didn't really occur to me how much of that job I was responsible for. Around that time, I just kind of felt more like, everything for me at that point was about aggression. So I just beating the hell out of shit just because that's That was my one focus all the time. It's pretty much was being angry and aggressive, most of the time. So, getting to play it now and seeing like, just getting that vibe and that feeling from playing these songs the way I feel like they should have been played is amazing. Like I could have never, excuse me, pictured this in my head. So I'm quite pleased indeed.
So with this album, you felt like you completely understood the role of being the drummer in this band? You think this is where it all came together for you, as far as I'm the one setting the tone in a lot of ways? With
this record was like the first step where I started feeling confident enough to say, like there's a lot of times like dudes would have drum parts already written for guitar and stuff like that, and they'd have ideas in their head, and I just kind of go, okay, and certain stuff is just, it's required, right? Like, there's this thrash riff or whatever, it's going to require you playing one of these couple drum beats. Like that's just what it is. But at this point is when I started to feel like, I'm pretty confident in the fact that people need to leave me alone, let me do what I need to do. And then like Earthsplit, I was like, all right, I can do anything I want. Just if you come up with an idea, I'm pretty sure that I can do it, no matter what it is. Like, all right, you want to make this part sound like Slipknot? I'll make it sound like Slipknot. You want this part to sound like Opeth? I'll make it sound like fucking Opeth. I can do anything. But not great forever, but I'm that guy. I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. But I will make it sound like it's supposed to sound for short chunks of time. It'll sound excellent. We just have to change that riff when we get to that point where it starts to go south. All right, change it up, and I'll be there. But I just felt like it was definitely the start of where I started to go, okay, I'm capable of doing this and putting things together, and like, just let me be, and I'll make it happen for you. Just let me get there, But I think it's fantastic, playing this album. It's amazing.
Do you consider yourself to be primarily a live performer, or do you think you excel more working in the studio and writing and recording?
I just feel like I probably, when I was in Bad Wolves, I wasn't the primary songwriter or the one recording stuff outside of my guitar solos. So I feel like I'm a little out of practice as far as being like writing a record, being in the studio and doing it on like a full scale level. So, and I've become a bit more of a guy who's like hired by other bands to be a live performer. So I feel like that's kind of become my calling card, is being kind of like the pro, you can call it, but I hold it down and kind of equip myself well and make those environments work really well. But I'm trying to reclaim my kind of ability as a creative and being in the studio and being better. So, I think I'd love to characterize myself as like, man, I go in the studio and that's where the magic happens. But I feel like I'm trying to get back on that horse a little bit and figure out how I exist in that framework. So that's kind of a broader question, to be honest with you, and a lot of little psychological insecurity things I have to kind of demons I'm battling. I think as far as that, the Bad Wolves experience was a little traumatic.
Ooh, snap. I definitely enjoy the studio process more than the live performance, for several reasons, which I've explained them to several people talking about this. Number one, I love the creative experience. I love writing and putting things together and then trying all the different ideas. Like, that's the most fun part for me. Everything after that, for me, is just work. It's get in there and sweat and do it over and over again until it's right. At that point, it's like, all right, the fun is over now. Now you're in the crapper. So for me, once the album's done, I'm over it. I'm ready to write new shit. Like, we could never play the shit live. I'm like, okay, I'm good with that. Let's write some new shit next week. I mean, live is cool, but from my standpoint, I can understand how it's great for everybody else. But I sit behind a wall of shit and sweat my dick off for a fucking hour. And then, it's not like I'm getting famous or I don't get any of the benefits of the live performance, other than just, obviously there is a main benefit of playing in front of people that like your band. That's the principal benefit, obviously. But I don't even really get to enjoy that. I can't see motherfuckers. And it's not like I can walk up to the front and say, hey, man, check me out. No, there's none of that shit. I can sit in the back, sweat my dick off, and then when it's over, I'm gross. My feet are wet. Sometimes my hands are bleeding, like stuff like that. All the cool stuff that you get from playing live. So as far as all that goes, yes, I love the creative process and being in the studio a lot more than playing live. I'm sure I'm in the minority when it comes to that sort of thing. Everybody loves playing live, but I love being in the studio.
What separates playing with God Forbid from all your other gigs? It's obviously going to lean a little more heavy on you as the hired gun role, but what makes God Forbid different from all the other bands?
What makes God Forbid different than pretty much every band I've ever played with, probably the exception of this band Vegas Nerve I started, is that it very much is, the music and the experience is very much representative of, like, I guess whatever soul I have, and kind of embodies like all the heart and blood, sweat, and tears. I think it's very much listening to the music, and you understood that we created that together. It's not very crafted from outside sources. I mean, we had producers and stuff that definitely helped and make it better, but it is ultimately like a representative of our collective work and vision. And I think how we built it so organically, so grassroots, very humble. And I would say humble beginnings, but I feel like it started humble and it ended humble. And I think there's a strain of humility and DIY nature to it that persists. And so I think when, like, if I perform a great show with a band that, essentially is paying me a fee to be there and, to do a job, there's no like long arcing gratification. It's more like, I'm glad I did a good job. But as far as I'm concerned, if the band is a successful show, it's the band that had a successful show. It's not Coyle that had a successful. My success is doing my job well and make sure they're happy with the job I did, hopefully. But with God Forbid and you kind of rise and fall with the success of everything. So if, something goes wrong or the album doesn't sell or you play a crappy show, you're depressed because that is a reflection of you and your efforts and kind of and I think when I was younger, much more like all of my identity was wrapped up in everything the band was, because that's all there was. There was no side projects. There was no, real other interests that was I didn't matter in the world until this band. And so, like, this is why I matter. This is why I'm here to kind of exist. And I've gotten a lot more healthy with that and kind of differentiating that, understanding that I do have an identity outside of this band and have to be on my own kind of 2 feet outside of that. But, if things go well and we play a good show, it just feels better because you feel like this is part of who I am, and vice versa. If it doesn't go well, then you get the other side of it. It is very much tied to your heart and your soul.
So God Forbid still feels like the home team at the end of the day.
Well, absolutely. And there's the God Forbid feels like the home team, but you can't undo that. Like it is, or like there's nothing anyone in this band can do to kind of pull apart that's what we were completely committed to for, a decade plus of our lives, at a very like formative portion of our lives. And like I say this, like we had this situation where we were literally all working for the same landscaping company at the same time. So me, Dallas, Corey, and Byron were working every day, and then John would come and work like off hours or like maybe weekends. He'd come in but all 5 members, but the 4 of us would get up early, mad, get in the truck, and then listen to WSOU all day and hear bands on there that we thought sucked, that we thought we were better than. And then I realized the reason why we made it out of it is that all these other like local bands that are having some success, they were going to college and they were like, oh, I'm going to start a family and do this. And we were like, we have nothing. We are cutting lawns. And if this band doesn't make it, like we're all probably going to end up being criminals because we have nothing to fall back on. You know, but I think there was a real desperation for us to not just be successful. We were desperate to be good because at a certain point we didn't feel like we were good. And when we started to get some momentum and feel like we actually were effective and presenting something that was better than what a lot of people were presenting, we were desperate to just be kind of recognized. I don't think we ever even thought about like a business or anything like that. It was just this thing of like, we just got to get play on this radio station. Then we do this. We just got to get on this show. And it's just, you're kind of have these little small goals and you feel like each step is going to be the panacea that takes you to whatever the next thing is.
Right. We got to get out of VFW halls and firehouses. We got to start playing.
Yeah, but
Brighton Bar.
We were happy to play on the VFWs as long as it was like a cool show. Like you'd fight to get on those shows. It's like, oh, Dillinger's on that show. We need to be on that show, you know, or whatever.
Okay, so
top that. What's different about your bands?
Well, I mean, I feel like the major difference is just obviously it's the energy between people because that's what makes every band experience different is the chemistry between the people. So when that changes and whatever variance, whether you're getting hired to do something or you're going in the studio and you're getting paid to do something or you're just filling in for some friends that like, hey, you know, can you come do this? Which I think when you get to a certain position and you have friends around, that's going to happen just naturally. They say, hey, you know, what are you doing? Can you do this? That energy is always different and you have to appreciate the different kind of interactions with all those different groups of people. For instance, like, you know, like for doing DOV stuff is like, it's like, it's very strange for me because everyone in that band is kind of like so relaxed. It was like weird to me at first. Like I had no idea that, you know, like bands even function like that. To be honest, like it was so crazy to be like, there was like, it's crazy because there's like never any problems. Like no one's ever mad about anything. You know what I mean? I'll be like sitting there thinking to myself, what is wrong with this situation? Like, are these dudes like after a while is it gonna change? You know what I mean? I was like, maybe everybody's just being super nice because we're just like, you know, we're just getting together and we're just like feeling each other out. But it is literally like that all the time. The only time it's crazy is there's been a couple times where, you know, the energy changes when Glover changes. Like he doesn't really drink, but sometimes he likes to tap the bottle and it gets weird because he gets dramatic. You know, he'll talk to you in nothing but a Jamaican accent for like 2 hours. You know what I mean? You're like, yo, what is up with this cat? You know what I mean? But I feel for me, it's like when you go back to God forbid, like you feel that energy. It's like going to that comfy spot on the couch. You know what I mean? Like you instantly just kind of like, oh, okay, all right, we here now, and it, which is nice. You know, it's some people I think view that in a negative light. I really don't. I feel like it's great to be able to surround yourself in that energy again. And I feel like also now, in some ways it's better because we're all older and, you know, you're not going out of your way to be a dick to somebody just to do it, generally speaking. You know, I mean, obviously there's times or whatever, but, you know, it's just like, it just feels like the same, but a little bit better in certain aspects for me. And, when you're dealing with all these like these new experiences, like you have to appreciate them for what they are. And like I've met a lot of people and jammed with a lot of different people, and it's fun for different reasons because you're doing like a lot of different things. Well, for me, I've done a lot of different things. Like done some hip hop stuff. I did some gospel stuff, which was that was a completely. You want to talk about night and day experiences? That was a very the first time I did that was a very different experience because obviously people in there
they call him brother Coyle.
They do. They absolutely do. And it's nothing I haven't had happen in my life because I know the people. You know what I mean? But it's just like it's just so crazy. You know what I mean? Like the different energy and the people praise the Lord. Like you're in the studio and they don't barter. These people are professional. You know what I mean? Here is your check, Brother Corey. We are blessed to have you here. And I'll be like, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. I love you all. And I meant that shit. All of it.
Because they just hand you the check. Why wouldn't you?
Well, also, they were just pleasant to be around, honestly.
Hallelujah.
You know what I mean?
Hallelujah.
They're just pleasant to be around. And they're like, people are on time. They're professional. They're smiling all the time and shit. I was like, man, this is crazy. So it is, though. It's like I've had, and I mean, not every experience has been awesome, but, it's like for the most part, it's been pretty amazing. But it never has that sense of like, it's like that Barco lounger that your grandfather said is like that reliable comfort. Like you just know what's expected. You know what I mean? You get in, you're like, all right, man, this I don't even have to try this shit on. This fits already. It's all good. So, that to me is like the biggest difference is like just learning to appreciate the different nuances to all the engagements that you encounter despite what people are involved or the situation. There's so many positive situations that you get into getting to play with more people, which I think in turn actually helps with my relationship within God forbid and that feelings like there's so much stuff like I feel like all right we can make this better, just it doesn't have to be this or like the way we used to think about things. It doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be this. It's really easy to just do this. It's really easy to just do that. For instance, we have two guys in the band. These guitar player dudes. We got Doc and Nick, and they're social and they smile. They shake hands and do stuff. See me, I don't do none of that shit. I want to go in the back and smoke weed, be left alone. So it works.
Which is hilarious because Corey knows everyone and everyone knows Corey, but he's not. According to him, he's not social.
I do one-on-ones though. See, that's the thing. I'm social in that regard. Like if it's like one person or two people, you know what I mean, we're kicking it. I'm social in that regard. You guys are like they're out there. You know what I mean? They're like out there. They're in groups of people talking. I see them laughing and joking and stuff. I'm like. I'm gonna go over here and smoke this joint, but it works out. You know what I mean? Like, there's no need for me to try to do that. Like everybody is doing their thing, and I feel like that's a good place to be. That takes pressure off me. I don't have to worry about that. You know why? Doc and Nick is out there doing their things, shaking their hands, and I don't know what the hell they do, but they do stuff. I see them being social, and people are smiling and hugging and shit. So I assume it's going well. You know what I mean? I'm on the side somewhere where like one or two people just like, yeah, I'll see you next time. I'm out. But these are the positive things. I think it's all the experiences are great, and it's great to take those outside experiences and take what you've learned and appreciate and bring it back to, the comfy couch.
So it still feels like homecoming because that common foundation, like you've seen, all coming from the same root.
Let's just say this: we were around each other so much, like what that motherfucker. When you know the crust of a motherfucker, everybody knows the crust of a motherfucker up in here. You know what I mean? Like, there's not really any question. You know what it is. So, yes, it's great to. It's great to have those outside experiences, but it's awesome to be able to like come into a very comfortable experience and know what to expect, essentially.
All right, so the 20th anniversary of the album was the day of the show in Jersey. So what you guys have been everywhere, different sizes of crowds, on your own and with others. What separates a Jersey crowd from the rest of the crowds in the country and the world at large?
I mean, I guess it's New Jersey is the being from there and having a history and having, I don't know, I guess it's the one place where we're part of the local culture, and whatever impact we've made. And again, if you were there, you were there. If you weren't, you weren't. But there's just a familiarity. I think and it's not just us, right? There's so many great bands that we came up with. Many of them are still playing to this day. And, obviously, like, Jersey is a highlight for every tour. So even the bands that are not from here know this is like, it's like going to a Knicks game, right? Like, the New York basketball fan is a knowledgeable fan. They are a sophisticated fan. They understand the game. And I think New Jersey's like that for music, and especially the world of music we're in, where they know what's up. And if you're good, then you will get respect here. And bands, if they're kind of having a moment, we're going to find out about them first in Jersey. And we're going to give them love first, and I've seen that with so many bands. A lot of it has to do with WSOU and what's going on there. But I think there's just so much here, right? You got New York, you got Philly, you got Long Island, you got DC, you got, so much stuff kind of in the vicinity. And, New England's not too far away. But yeah, I don't think it's that unique for a band to kind of be the most popular in the place where they're from and be most appreciated there. But when we first reunited, it was imperative that we do a show in Jersey to give back for people that have asked and wanted to see the band, and, just have that moment to appreciate the band that maybe they thought they'd never get to see again. And so, having this opportunity to do it again, and it was with Life of Agony, so it wasn't like our crowd, so to speak, but there was definitely plenty of support there, and it was wonderful to share that moment and play that record, because we're doing a few shows at the end of the year, but after that, this will probably never happen again.
I mean, I think the big difference in Jersey crowds for us is not just the crowd, it's everybody that's there. Because, it's like you go back with the staff that runs there, the bouncers that are there, everything that goes into making, all the people that go into making a show together. Plus then it's like, every show we ever played in Jersey, there inevitably is some people that show up at the show you haven't seen in however long a span of time it is. And it's like, it just puts such a like exciting energy into the room, just knowing that those people are there. For me, that's like, I feel like that's the biggest thing about playing Jersey, that it's like this intangible quality that you just know it's there, which is awesome. I mean, obviously there's all the, the other stuff, people acting crazy, and sometimes we get some God forbid chants going on, that kind of thing, which is always nice. But that's the major thing for me is just reconnecting with friends and people that you haven't seen in forever that come out to the shows, because that's why they're out. Like, you've literally brought those people there for that one specific reason, and they're seeing other people that they are by extension friends with and haven't seen. It's like this whole excitement and energy and bonding that's going on. So for me, that's the biggest thing playing New Jersey crowds. Is like it's just that feeling, that reconnection with everybody, and seeing everybody's faces, like all the smiles and shit. Like, ain't nobody frowning up in that mug. You know what I mean? Everybody's amped up. And then, and there's always, our additional friends who are already amped up when they get there. And they're saying, all those individual vibes that just kind of add on more and more to the situation. It's fantastic. So that's the biggest thing for me.
Is there anything you guys want to touch on or feel like should be touched on that we didn't hit? Because I'm putting between the backstage footage and us talking about it, like, this is me putting the threads together for how it's all. I would
say the only thing we didn't cover is kind of like the themes of the album, maybe
for sure,
the political backdrop, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah,
at
sure.
all, but
the influences on the album, yeah.
But it's up to you.
That's fine. If you guys have something to say, please. I'm
going to be straightforward. I don't really have anything to say on that. So.
On the actual influence of the album. Okay.
Well, no, it's interesting about.
Well, 05 was a different world than 2025 for sure.
But again, I think in many ways it was different, but it's.
But it's the same.
I'm a big Twitter guy.
Whoa!
What the hell was that?
That was me snatching the. Wait, where's the other?
Was it just the You got it?
Yeah.
It was just the extender.
No, I'm a big Twitter guy, and then around 9/11, right before 9/11, Charlie Kirk got shot, and I was like, the one thing I was thinking of is the big phrase from 9/11, or the big thing we're supposed to take away is never forget. And it's really apparent we forgot, which is Gone Forever and to a big degree Constitution of Treason. Those albums were reactions to what was going on at that time, which was these two wars, unruly wars that seemed to be started for conspicuous reasons and were continuing for conspicuous reasons. And I think not just us, but a lot of people were questioning that. But in the light of 9/11, there was this bloodlust and fervor for retribution, for justice, and a lot of people would have been happy if we retaliated against anybody, as long as they were brown and they were Muslim. We're like, all right. And then what did we do? We gave up personal freedoms, personal privacy. Why? For safety. And with what happened to Charlie Kirk, which is a horrific thing, it's the same thing. It's all right. We need retribution. We need revenge. But it's worse. Why? I shouldn't say it's worse. It's different. I think it feels worse when the enemy is now your neighbor. It's the enemy from within. to Trump, to quote, the great leader, but
dear leader,
the dear leader, and
Corey's butting his lips up. I could hear it on mic. He's like,
but it's funny. I wanted to say something on stage, but I kind of felt like we were trying to keep it moving. I don't want to step on Byron, but the song "Crucify Your Beliefs," which I wrote a good round of the lyrics for. What that is really about is that once you are a zealot and once you believe, like I heard a phrase from a very famous musician who I'm friends with, who I think put out some really fucked up stuff in reaction to this. He talked about the phrase moral clarity. All right. The people who do the worst and most extreme things have moral clarity because they feel completely righteous, right? The people that crashed those planes into the buildings on 9/11 had moral clarity that they were doing 100% doing the correct thing. And the people who responded and go, hey, we're going to go into the mountains of, Pakistan to look for whoever did it. We have moral clarity. Sometimes, and eventually that gets lost, right? 10 years pass, you go, why are we here? Why did we start this? We don't even know. But Crucify Your Beliefs is about going, hey, once I'm all hyped up with this fervor for revenge and for I'm the good guy, they're the bad guy, that's it. You're done. You're like putty, and people can manipulate you and mold you and get to do whatever you want because they know once you're emotionally vulnerable, I have you. And then you could be a pawn and whatever. And I can put you in any war. I can put you in any fight, in any battle. As long as you go, oh, they're the bad guy. They have, don't you see they're wearing the black hat? And I think that it's shown that only the right set of circumstances have to take place for us to essentially make the same mistakes, which is, again, I don't think that's a necessarily collective thing, where not everyone is making the same mistakes, but we've learned that we have forgotten, which is the hardest thing to do if you want to stop cycles of violence is to be hit and not hit back. That's the hardest thing to do. And really, almost no one wants to do that. They love to quote Martin Luther King or Gandhi, but no one really wants to behave like them, because now it's like, I ain't no bitch, And so, not to get on my soapbox, but I think the themes of the album was, in a sense, our version of a post-apocalyptic tale.
Take two.
It was our version of a post-apocalyptic tale, really influenced by science fiction. But what was going on of the day of like, maybe these wars are never gonna end, or maybe one thing I truly believe is that there is no going back, right? There is no like, I say, unfortunately, like people want America to be great again, like. That sounds great. Like I'm not trying to dish you. Like I'm not trying to say you shouldn't have your vision. But I think we have to make it like it was. It's like we can't go back to a world that was like it was before 9/11. You can't unknow it. You can't go back to a world before there were nuclear weapons, because we know. You can't go back to a world before COVID, because we're all forever altered by it. We can't. There's no like, this isn't normal. It's never going to be like that anymore. It's just going to be a new thing, and you can take lessons from the past. You can learn from the past, but you can't. There's no time machines, man. There's no like you.
Big wheel keep on turning.
Yeah, exactly. No,
I couldn't resist.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that gospel coming out. You ready? Gospel forbid.
There you go.
Coming out.
But we all have to truly learn from mistakes. But I think the lesson though is that we always forget, right? It's easy for like, it seems like there's a lot of authoritarianism and fascism. Why? Because it's been so long since that was actually present in our lives that people who experienced it are no longer with us. And so each generation has to kind of learn on their own and make their own mistakes. And history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And we're just, here in the next,
next verse.
It's right. It's just like a hip hop song. The rhyme's coming back around. We're getting the second and third verse. But I think that was the point of what it is, and that's why it's like it's relevant now. And it might be, I think what we were trying to say or what we were putting across are our fears of like. It's not just us, right? Like, I think you turn on TV, every show about the future. You used to have movies and shows about the future where the future was good, right? Can you name one thing that's came out in the past 10 years where it's like about the future and it's actually good? It's almost nothing anymore. Everything is
dystopian.
Zombies, or it's nuclear holocaust, or it's,
vampires.
Vampires in the future? What show is that?
Yeah, I want to watch that.
There's a lot. Actually, they have like V-Wars and all that shit. It's like all about. Eventually, they like the vampires take over. They eat so many humans. Like we're basically just like human beings are like cattle, and now vampires are like.
Yeah, what's that movie with damn it, I forget the name of it. There's another good movie. I got it from Training Day.
Oh,
Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke, yeah.
That's a really good vampire movie about. Anyway, general point is.
Daybreakers? That one?
Daybreakers.
Yeah.
Really good movie. The point is that it's hard to envision things are going to get better. So we're not unique in that, but it does suck to go, hey, this really horrible thing happened, but then we did really dumb things in response to it that are self-inflicting wounds, but it seems like, destined to keep making the same mistakes. So. I don't know, but I think I'm glad that you can create art that can at least be your, just hey, here's our little warning sign. I don't know if anyone will listen, but I told you.
So actually, jumping off of that, so was there, when putting the album together, when the songs were, when you guys are writing, going through it, did the theme emerge from the songs you were writing, or did you guys go in with that in mind of like we reflect the world, or did that just become apparent through the course of making the album?
It became apparent. They were like, oh, everything seems about these few handful of subject matters, And then after the fact, I was like, oh, if we organize the album this way, and then I wrote this whole story and put it into chapters and kind of, I wrote the story to the album, but it was totally accidental. Yeah.
I wasn't there for any
Yeah,
of that.
you were. I just showed up when they asked me to. My time was done.
Well, here's the thing. It's like largely when guys are talking about subject matter, like I'll listen, but I generally won't, try to create too much input into it. Largely because I just feel like if guys have like a certain vision and they have these ideas that are very particular, then I'll just assume let them have at it. And I felt like I also had like, in my thinking, I had enough to worry about just doing what I needed to do and trying to be the best at it that I could, which was a very huge concern at the time for me. So it also felt, it constantly feels like, I feel like drums as an instrument, it's just, it's super time consuming. It's super time consuming. And then when you're done spending that time, you don't want to do shit. Your body's over it. Your mind is kind of like there, obviously, but you kind of like, that's what makes drums so hard. You got to keep mental focus under extreme physical duress, which is why it's the dumbest instrument that you could possibly play. It's for stupid people. I've said it many times. You're stupid if you play drums. It's dumb. But that's kind of where I was at. Like, it's like it takes up a ton of mental focus and a lot of physicality. So it never really like occurred to me like, oh, I got to jump in and see. Like, I felt like dudes had a handle on what was going on. It's like, I don't need to. Why fix it if it ain't broke? You know what I mean? I'm focused on what I got to do. Dudes got it under control. And when I, like I said, I would get done with, days where people weren't around. I was in the basement, playing double bass for 3-4 hours at a clip. You get done with that. I want to take a shower. I want to be left alone. That's it. That's what I got energy for at that point. You know what I mean? Like, your body's done. Your mind is kind of like mushy. And you just got to like chill out until the next round of abuse that you do to yourself because you're stupid for playing drums. There's that.